cooked one.
A cooked one? And what does a cooked delicious pancake look like? What does it taste like?
Golden brown.
Okay. Ah, Bobby gave me a visual. So it should be golden brown. What shape is it typically? Circle. Is it really chewy? No. What is it?
Fluffy.
So it's fluffy. And it should be nice and tender. How do we get to a nice, fluffy, delicious, tender pancake? Well, we have to understand the role of some different ingredients. Okay? How many of you have actually made pancakes? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so about half of you. All right, so by the end of the day, I want you to be able to understand the role of ingredients for baking by explaining the role in pancakes and learn the muffin method used to create a tender pancake based on my presentation. So, one of the first ingredients that we use is flour, all right? So flour comes from the wheat kernel, and the wheat kernel has 3 parts. It has the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. All-purpose flour comes from the endosperm portion of that wheat kernel, and wheat contains a variety of different ingredients, all right? It's comprised of starch and protein mainly. It also has some moisture, lipids, fiber, and minerals. What's a lipid?
Are we writing this down?
You will be.
A lipid?
What's a lipid? Anybody know?
I don't.
So a lipid is what is it?
Spatula?
Not a spatula. A lipid is a fat. Okay? And because it contains fat, sometimes if your flour has been stored too long, it can taste kind of rancid. Okay? So what is this role of flour in baked goods? Anybody know?
Measure it out.
What does it do?
Oh, puff stuff up, right?
Not necessarily puff stuff up. It gives those baked goods some structure, all right? It's the muscle. It's the main attraction typically in your baked goods. So it provides structure. It also absorbs liquid. It provides nutritional value, some texture, some color, some flavor, and it also helps in gluten development. What's gluten? Anybody know?
Stuff that people don't like.
All right, it's stuff that some people have some sensitivity to. Nene?
I was gonna say something.
It is in food that contains wheat. Okay, what is it? It's a protein substance that develops when liquids and flour are mixed, and it gives things strength and chewiness. So if you have ever eaten a bagel, is it tender or is it chewy?
Chewy.
It's chewy. And because it's chewy, it actually has a higher protein flour that makes it chewy. Also, the more you mix something, the more potential for gluten development. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's measure out my dry ingredients of flour. Again, I'm gonna fluff. I'm gonna sprinkle it in. And what else do I have to do?
Even it out.
What is it called? Flatten it.
I have to level it.
Level it. That's it.
I'm almost there.
Man, you're pretty good at that.
I have some leveling experience, Bobby. Believe it or not. All right, so boom there. And all right. So I'm gonna leave it there for now. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm gonna add my leavening agents. What's a leavening agent? Anybody know?
Oh, what?
A leavening agent.
Oil.
Huh?
Oil.
Not oil. An example of a leavening agent would be baking soda, baking soda. So it's sodium bicarbonate, and this chemically reacts with some type of acidic liquid. In pancakes, we're actually going to make buttermilk to create that chemical reaction. All right, so according to my recipe, which I have right here. Okay. I need a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. And I gotta level it.
My pancakes normally come in a box
Sometimes they do.
with a lady on the front. You just add one.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a lady and sometimes it's not, right? Those are good in a pinch, right? But we're actually gonna learn how to make them from scratch. All right. The other chemical leavener is baking powder. It typically says on your container, double acting, which means you get a reaction when it comes into contact with liquid, and then again when it reaches a certain temperature. All right, so with baking powder, you need 1 teaspoon, which is here. And this comes with a little leveler right on the inside. All right. So leaveners makes products rise. The other thing that we're gonna add is some salt. What does salt do? Anybody know?
Gives it flavor. Enhances the
Enhances the flavor.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, enhances flavor. It also helps with browning, believe it or not. Again, you're also gonna level and then put on top. Okay, any questions so far? No, all right. So the other thing that we're going to add is sweetener. What's an example of a sweetener? Anybody know?
Sugar.
Sugar. All right, what are some other sweeteners?
Alan says vanilla.
Okay, vanilla would be a flavoring, not necessarily a sweetener. Okay.
That's all I can think of off my
So,
dome.
white sugar, brown sugar, agave, honey, these are all examples of a sweetener, okay? So they can come in different forms. And in here, it is a dry ingredient, but sometimes you actually mix that with your sugar and your fat. All right, what's its role in baking? It's sugar, it makes things.
Sweet.
Yes! All right, not only does it add sweetness, it provides a little bit of flavor, some tenderness, and because there's sugars, it actually helps in browning. So we have our dry ingredients. What do we have to do to them? What's this tool?
Strain it.
A sifter,
Sift it.
and it's going to sift it. All right, so I'm gonna give it a little shaky shake.
What's the point of that thing if it goes all through?
It aerates everything, and even though it aerates it, I'm gonna take my hand and mix all of the salt, sugars, and leaveners throughout the flour. Okay? And then we'll put that aside. Before I put it aside, I'm actually gonna create a little well, and then we're gonna work on our liquid ingredients. So, some examples of a liquid ingredient would be milk, water, your juices, and the recipe calls for 1 cup of buttermilk, but we don't have buttermilk, it's too expensive. So I'm gonna actually make buttermilk by taking 1 tablespoon of acid. It could be in the form of lemon juice or vinegar. However, sour cream and vanilla are also acids. So I'm gonna take 1 tablespoon of my sour cream. I'm going to add it to my liquid measurement, and then I'm going to work on my squats and measure 1 cup of milk, and that's going to make some buttermilk.
I'm sort of grossed out, honestly.
Why are you grossed out?
Sour cream in the milk.
Well, it changes the texture, so the viscosity of the liquid, and it gives it a little bit of flavor. It's actually quite tasty. Now, we also have our fats. Now, the fat we're using in this recipe is oil. Okay, some other fats could be butter, it could be margarine, it could be lard. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons. So that's 1. And that's 2. So some fats, they provide some tenderness. Okay, they add some flavor, some richness, some moisture, and it also helps brown your crust. All right. Your egg, what do you think an egg does?
Crack.
We have to crack it first. You're so right. Did I do a good job?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Makes it.
So, what does an egg do? Anybody know? There's a fancy word called emulsification. Emulsification means it takes 2 liquids that typically don't go together and it binds them together. So fat and oil don't really go together. By adding my egg, it all becomes one homogeneous liquid. So I'm using my whisk to mix my dry, or my wet ingredients rather. Okay? Once I'm done using my whisk, oh, but what did I forget? Alan, my vanilla. What does vanilla do, you think? It's a flavoring. It adds some flavor, some texture, okay, to your
You got chocolate
products.
chips, miss?
Say that again?
You got chocolate chips?
I don't. But at home, I typically do add some chocolate chips. All right, so Muffin Method. I have my dry ingredients. I make a well in my bowl. I take all of my liquid ingredients that are all homogeneous and emulsified because of that lovely egg. I add that to my bowl, and then I mix it with what kind of spoon? A wooden spoon. I'm not using my whisk, because if I used a whisk, that means all of my pancake batter would be stuck in my whisk, and I don't want that. I'm going to mix it until it's still lumpy. If I continue to overmix, and once I added it to my griddle, which is this, that's the piece of equipment that I have, okay, they would be flat. By keeping some lumps in, it gives those pancakes a little bit of structure. All right, so the coating on my griddle is what?
Cast iron?
Not cast iron, it's actually non-stick. So this is the griddle that you're using. Let's look at the condition of this. What can you tell me about this, Nene?
It's flat and it's square.
It's square. How about the condition of it, though?
Oh, it's a condition.
It's used. It's pretty scratched up. And to avoid scratching your griddle, what tool do you think you're going to use? A spatula. Is it going to be a metal spatula or a plastic, hard plastic?
Plastic.
Hard plastic, okay? So when you make your pancakes, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of oil. You're going to put it on a little bit of a paper towel, and then you're just going to oil your surface. That also helps create a non-stick surface. Okay, now we need to portion our pancakes. For portioning purposes, you could use a spoon. Personally, I prefer to use a quarter cup measurement. Because I get the most consistent result. Okay, so I'm gonna put my hand over my griddle. I feel the heat.
Careful now.
Thank you. And I'm just going to wipe it off each time and then add it to my griddle. So when you guys do yours, it's going to be at about medium heat. My griddle is between 300 350 degrees. Jordan.
Do we just take it home or we just watch?
Well, that's a good question. Miss Leal is actually making these pancakes so you guys can sample them, and you're going to tell me if I should be hired by IHOP or should I keep my job as a teacher?
It's called House of Burgers, miss.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
So, how do I know my pancake is ready to be flipped? Anybody know?
When it starts bubbling on top.
Okay, so when I see some bubbles on top and on the outside edges, they should start to change texture, okay? So somebody was saying that they just made one big, huge pancake. How do you think that turned out for that person?
Not good.
Raw.
Not good. It was raw in the middle, okay? So again, baking is all about time and temperature and getting the appropriate size going there.
So what if you eat the raw stuff? 'Cause I
Well,
did
you
eat
could
that.
get what? You could get what foodborne illness?
6.
You could get salmonella. Very good.
I don't think I
And you want to avoid that by fully cooking your things. All right.